Okay, so we're going to look at layers within Photoshop. Understanding layers is an important part of understanding how Photoshop works. So if we look down here on the right hand side, we'll find the layers panel. In this document, I currently have 4 layers. We have image 0318, which is this picture of an abbey here. Beneath that, I have an additional image which we can't see because image 0318 is on top of it. There's some text further down underneath both of those, and finally there's a plain white background. So if you were watching the earlier tutorials, I created an A4 white document and this was the background. So when navigating the layers panel, you'll see the background layer is locked. We can lock other layers by clicking once on the layer and choosing the little padlock symbol, which will make the object uneditable. So again, I tried to erase it, but it said it cannot use the eraser because the layer is locked. If I unlock that layer, it's currently saying I still can't use the eraser, and that's because the image has to be rasterized. So if I click on that, it'll say the smart object must be rasterized before proceeding. So I'm going to click OK because I want to edit this document. So now, if I delete some of this image, or erase it I should say, what it's doing is erasing part of only this layer. So we can't see the white background because there's another layer in there. Let me make my eraser slightly larger by using the close square bracket key and deleting a larger portion of this image. I say deleting, I mean erasing. So now you can see part of image 9756. With layers, you can rearrange the order of the layers. So let me just step backwards a couple of times, either edit, step backward, or Command-Alt-Z. There we go. So if I drag image 9756 above this image of the abbey, you'll see it places that above. Likewise, if I click once, it'll offer me the option to rasterize the object. If I click OK, I can then erase part of this image, revealing what's behind that. If I then select the abbey underneath, and I try and erase part of the front image, you can't see the adjustment because I'm erasing content underneath this layer, because this is the layer I have selected. To look at things, or layers beneath other layers, you can toggle the visibility of a layer. So if I make this top layer, image 9756, invisible by switching off this eye, I can then see the layer underneath, and I can see the part I erased. If I then make it visible again, it'll reappear. I can make these two both invisible, and I can see some text which I created earlier as well. Again, I can drag and drop this text to sandwich it in between the two layers. If I reveal both of those, you'll see how the text sits on top of this picture of the abbey, but underneath this nighttime scene here. So arranging your layers is a very handy way of arranging how objects interact with each other. You can also change the opacity of a layer too. So with this top layer selected, I'm just going to reduce the opacity. There we go. Now I'm going to step back a few layers because I don't like these two edits. I think they're quite unsightly. So first of all, I've stepped backwards to get rid of my opacity change. I'm stepping backwards to change the ordering of the layers. And I'll carry on stepping backwards until I can see from this preview I've got rid of the part that I erased. Let's step backward a little bit further. There we go. Another thing you can also do with layers is adjust the blend mode. So the blend mode is basically the way that layer interacts with other layers within the composition. So for example, if I change it to lighten, you'll see what happens. If you look very closely, you can see the lighter parts of the composition are still visible. Let me just zoom in slightly. If I hold down the spacebar to navigate down, you'll see light parts of my image are appearing on the layer underneath. If I change this to color, it's used that layer to kind of colorize parts of the image. So if I zoom out, you'll see it's almost applied almost a black and white effect to that, yet the oranges from that particular image are still bleeding through. And again, I can still adjust the opacity to adjust the amount of effect that layer has on this particular image. So the blend mode is very useful for combining images or using details such as the color or the contrast of an image to affect those layers beneath it. Experiment with the different blend modes and see what works best for your image. Sometimes it can have very nice visual results, other times they can end up looking quite peculiar if not used correctly. You can create new layers. So down here you have the option to create a new layer. If I create a new layer, it's called layer 1. It's currently sitting above all my other layers, but this checkerboard means that it's transparent, so I can't see anything else on here. So if I were to draw on this layer using the pen tool, let me use the eyedropper tool to select a different colour. So I'm using the paint tool to just draw something on there. You'll see that's only on that layer, so I've not actually drawn directly on this nighttime scene. So I can drag that underneath these two, and it's no longer in the nighttime scene. If I make the layer invisible, you can see my blob still exists, but it's on an independent layer which I can move around independently of my other layers.